It's the movie America unanimously voted as the greatest Christmas film ever. Well, if this film is any indication, America is fucked, and it always has been. It's A Christmas Story, this week on Nothing Good.
That's a hell of an intro, Mr.
Wow.
Brown. Appreciate it, man. How you guys doing? Mac, how you doing? Noah, how you doing?
I'm good. Better now that I'm not watching this movie, but we'll get to that in a minute.
So I'm doing pretty well. I just wanted to apologize to the listeners for not being here for the last recording of the episode for Halo. Unfortunately, everybody, after my 4-episode stint in Noah's basement, and I finally was freed, I developed Stockholm Syndrome. And I was arrested for trying to climb my way back into his basement.
It's ironic that you were arrested for trying to get into my basement when I had spent so many hours crawling my way into your basement.
Well,
okay.
I made sure I brought the turkey baster with me.
Nice.
And I was
that's when they said put the weapon down. That's what they were yelling about.
Yeah. Marielle was not happy.
I tried to, on a completely related note, Mac, I tried to find one of those big accordion, like squeezy things that you used to have in old-timey fireplaces, but they don't sell one that gets the nozzle as small around as it would need to be. Anyway, Doc, how are you?
Matt had better days. Work was long, stressful, but it is over now, and I'm hanging out with 2 of my best friends, so things are good. I'm just excited to sit down and shoot the breeze and talk about a good movie here and there.
Here and there. We'll eventually get to it.
Here and there.
But so welcome to our sweet, singular Australian listener. Thank you very much, New South Wales. Welcome to our holiday series. Guys, we've made it long enough to have a Christmas special.
It's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it.
May I say something to our Australian listener?
Please.
G'day, mate.
Oh, nice. That's nice. That's not going to bother anybody at all.
Well, now that I know we have an Australian listener, I'm going to get a Foster's.
Very nice.
For the next,
yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm all ready to go there for sure.
Whoever it is in Australia that's listening, they're sticking around because we've consistently had the same amount of listens week after week in Australia. So thank you, New South Wales.
Yeah, thank you, Australia. Have we heard from Peru?
No one's really heard from the entire country of Peru in quite some time. Since my sensual lovemaking via song form, they've ghosted me. They've left me on red. But that's okay, because I'm going to show up at their work, and I'm going to fake a pregnancy if need be. Okay? Because Peru, I'm never going to let you go.
Well, Noah, there's actually something I need to say to you. You will not be faking the pregnancy. The reason that I was trying to break back into your house is that we're expecting.
Oh boy,
man! I feel like a full Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just because that we should review the movie Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh no, that's not too bad. That's not too bad.
I'm adding that to the list right now.
Oh, add it to the list. Absolutely.
Go ahead and just ignore it as best I can.
But at the top of our list is today's film.
Yes.
As I mentioned in my intro before I started getting angry, it has been voted in multiple lists as the #1 Christmas movie by America. It is Herb Jones. Doc, your choice for the beginning of our Christmas series here. It is 1983's A Christmas Story.
Yeah. So it's actually a pretty fun episode for me for a couple of different reasons. This show allows all of us to revisit things that, we held a certain way in our minds and in reverence or maybe infamy. and allows us to, as adults, go back and watch, analyze, enjoy, consume that content. And I approached this particular subject with the idea initially, like, oh, I'm just going to watch it and enjoy it like I always do and take my thoughts down. But I was like, until up until a couple weeks ago, I actually had never met another person who didn't really like the movie until you. Too. I just literally never met a person who said they didn't like it. And I'm like, huh. So I started asking around, and I found obviously more people liked it than didn't like it, but still there were more people than I expected who didn't. So for every 3 people who said they did, 1 person didn't like it. So I'm like, that's still fair. So I'm like, well, let me approach this movie, because I'm the only person in this group who really enjoys it, unbiased, which is almost impossible, but I wanted to approach it like, take my childhood memories, put it over here, and just watch it. And I have so much of a different perspective on it now, and I appreciate and enjoy it way more in a different way than I ever thought I would, which is really cool. So I'm glad we're covering this so I can talk about it. But what do you guys think? Where are you at on it? From your childhood.
I did the exact opposite. Same thing, but he's from the exact opposite thing. It is no secret to anyone that I did not enjoy this movie growing up. But when I put it on to watch it for our podcast, I tried my hardest to wipe my brain clean of any preconceived notion. And if I wasn't going to watch it for the Christmas aspect, I was going to at least watch it from a film aspect, and try to draw a as unbiased as possible conclusion to the film. Spoiler alert, I generally found myself at the same destination that I did, but for different reasons. And that's what's important, as you said, as an adult looking at it subjectively. I dislike it, but for different reasons, I guess is the way to go. Mac, how did you view this film, and what mindset?
I was really looking forward to being hopefully the one person on this episode who could shit all over the movie. I was really hoping to have that beautiful confrontation with you both as I explained to everybody why I dislike A Christmas Story. But sadly, gentlemen, because as we've often said, we are of the same mind. I did take the same approach this time around. Now, Jones, I think it's funny, and I don't remember this from when we were roommates and everything. But, every Christmas on what is it, TBS or TNT?
Both. TBS.
Both. It is. Yeah. No, you're right. It is both. They put this movie on a 24-hour loop. Mm-hmm. And I will occasionally flick through the channels, and I would, catch a few minutes of it, and then I would continue flicking through the channels as I would typically do. But I don't ever remember it being on in the house while we were living together. So I didn't know if this was like a traditional movie that you had watched each year, if maybe it was just something that you kind of watched, more privately than like downstairs in the living room and the shared spaces or anything. But I will say that upon my recent watch, because I've only, and I'll say this, everybody, I've only seen A Christmas Story probably through twice. This last watch for me was the second time watching it all the way through.
That's pretty wild.
Because I'm not a fan of it. And I'll explain as we get into it as to why I'm really not a fan. But I did try to look at it from a number of different aspects beyond just my own personal preferences as a holiday movie and as a movie of its time. And I didn't dislike it for some of the aspects of the movie, particularly near the end of it, where when they actually hit Christmas time. But again, we'll go into that. But I will say that as I was watching, especially in the first part of the movie, I was reaching for my imaginary remote control like I typically would to turn the channel and put something else on.
Muscle memory.
My muscle memory was definitely kicking. I was like, now I remember why I always keep changing the channel when this movie's on. But I will have a few things to say that it maybe changed my mind a little bit. I will preface that I did watch this movie with someone who is a big fan of Christmas Story. And as she gets this episode of the podcast, my darling, wonderful, beautiful better half, Stephanie, who is a major fan of Christmas Story. So I think in that aspect, too, that I wasn't watching it by myself. I was watching with somebody who had a strong affection for the movie. it made me see some aspects of it that I didn't react to that she did. That maybe made me think, oh, well, maybe this doesn't quite suck balls as much as I think it does. So,
well, with that being said, I'm glad we're all kind of on the same page with our approach. So this movie released November 18th, 1983. Modest budget of $3.3 million. Opening weekend only made about $2 million. Did not set the world on fire. Word of mouth, that's a different story. It ended up with a domestic gross of about $20 million, which ain't too bad.
No, it is not a bomb, which is
no.
1983. When your movie is released at the same time when anyone is playing Jedi in its first run, you are lucky to make your money back.
Yeah.
I would like to say how impressed I am about its international total. Jones, I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that or not, but it grossed an estimated $13,000 internationally.
Wow!
Yeah, it didn't. It only pushed the needle a little bit with the worldwide gross,
and I feel like all of that came from Ontario.
Mm-hmm. Considering. So Bob Clark directed the film.
Michigan, yeah.
Bob Clark directed the film. He also directed Porky's 1 and 2. Rhinestone, I believe. Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton.
The country movie. Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
It is an experience to try to watch that movie. Let me just tell you.
I will take your word for it.
I promise you. Listen, I promise you. The best way to watch, because this is how I saw Rhinestone, right?
The fact that you even said that sentence.
Yes, this is how I saw the movie Rhinestone. Is that we all consider ourselves movie guys, right? Film guys with a bunch of useless knowledge. And this is before I met my darling wife. I was flexing about how much I enjoy the film Rocky IV and the movies Demolition Man and all things Sylvester Stallone. And this girl that I was chasing around at the time, I was at a party with her, and she said, "Have you ever seen Rhinestone?" And I said, "No." And so she breaks out one of those DVDs that had like the folding lip in the cardboard case, those early DVDs. And she puts on Rhinestone. And so the first time and the only time I've ever seen it was in a room full of people who I did not know and never saw again. But I sat through Rhinestone to be nice.
Everything about that experience, though, sounds like a complete and unmitigated nightmare.
Yeah, it was not great. The movie was not. It wasn't like a laugh out loud movie. Sylvester Stallone trying to be a country singer.
Is it a comedy? Is it an actual comedy?
It's the romantic comedy, dramedy.
Was it supposed to be a comedy, or did it just end up being funny?
It was supposed to be a comedy, but it was supposed to be a comedy that appeals to Southerners in the early 80s. So, best way to describe it. We've all three seen the original Blues Brothers, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they go to be the good old boys in that country western bar, the people in that bar are the target demographic for Rhinestone at that era in that setting.
That makes
the movie looks like it reminds me of like a Golden Corral parking lot. Right.
I hope everybody has their Golden Corral to go box as well.
Oh my God.
Before we get into more facts about the film, though, speaking of being on the same page, what is everyone drinking this fine evening?
Well,
Mac, lead us off.
Well, everybody, I am drinking a Breckenridge Brewery Vanilla Porter.
That's a good beer.
It is good beer, yes. One of the things that I really appreciate about the podcast is that I'm trying not to repeat beers.
Yes.
So that is all, giving me the opportunity to make sure I'm continuously expanding my horizons. And as we get into the holiday season, ladies and gentlemen, that means nice, warm holiday beers, which even beyond Oktoberfest and, pumpkin spice beers, the holiday beers are my absolute favorite. And we can start breaking into one of my all-time favorites, which we'll have eventually on a recording here. Perhaps in one of the next two, I will have one of my favorite Sam Adams winter lagers, which I'm
wonderful.
Excited about.
There you go.
But it is very good. I'm enjoying this immensely right now.
It's a good one. Doc, what are you drinking?
Usual. Well, not the usual, but one of my bourbons. I'm just drinking some G&W private stock. Just a little bit, just to get me through the show, loosen up a little bit. How about yourself?
I'm still working through the basic ass the Bat Blue that I bought from my in-laws Thanksgiving, and they didn't drink it, so I have to before Mrs. Brown discovers that I've spent $200 on more beer. So this is my curse. This is my law.
Good thing she doesn't listen to these episodes.
No. Yeah.
Oh, she refuses to. She absolutely flat out. She's like, how much? I'm like, oh, you would really like this episode we did. She's like, okay, so how much do you talk on it? No.
Oh,
what do you mean? It's like,
what? I'm not sure how I feel about that.
So Noah, do you realize that as you mentioned Labatt Blue over the airwaves, that the entirety of Canada's penis wiggled a little bit? They don't know why, but they're grateful that it did.
I first of all, I do pride myself on being able to give the fine people of Canada if not a great white north, then at least a moderate to half stack north.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
but if you're going to drink a basic beer, then you must go with a Canadian basic beer, and you must go with the official beer of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Absolutely,
that's absolutely required. But we're here now, and thinking of basic things. Is there any more basic information we can give our listeners about this film? I did zero precursory research into this.
That's okay. So yeah, a little bit, but yeah. So Bob Clark directed the film. The inspiration for the film came from one night he was sometime in the 1960s. He's driving around, listening to the radio, and he comes across a radio show by a guy named Gene Shepard. And this guy, Gene Shepard, is telling these stories about growing up in the 1930s and 1940s. And Clark is just enthralled by these stories because this Shepard guy is I've actually went back and listened to some of his interviews. Incredibly charismatic, really funny guy. He was on Letterman before a couple of times. Pretty famous comedian author, apparently. So anyhow, he was just like enthralled by these stories and knew then, as an aspiring, B-level director, that he wanted to make this movie based on these stories because he just loved them so much. He shot the idea around. Not a single studio wanted to make it. So fast forward several years, Porky's is a hit, and now he has leverage. Now the dream story he wants to put out, he wants to do. MGM says, well, yeah, you could do it, but you got to do Porky's too. He goes, sure, I'll do it. But I'll do this first. And that's where A Christmas Story comes in. Now, A Christmas Story, fun fact, is written by a person named Lee Brown, Clark himself, and Shepard. And Shepard is the narrator in the movie.
Oh, so there you go. That's
like his story of his youth in a lot of ways. A lot of the places, because the movie takes place in Indiana. The high school is the same high school he went to school in. I think it's the same town. So it's a lot of like parallels between. Now, there's some things that didn't actually happen in his life, but a lot of it's just kind of based on that comedic perspective of youthful innocence. But as far as like little fun facts, I think that's probably the most important part of the story of the making of this movie is that this, for the director, was kind of a passion project for him, which is pretty cool.
And you can tell. One of the positive aspects I noted about this movie is that you say whatever you want to say about the movie, positively or negatively, about the performances and everything else in there. You can tell whoever shot this loved it and felt it the way they were through it, and the way it was shot and remembered that region and that feeling. Because there's one thing too, and it's the reason why some of us didn't like the movie when we were younger and some of us love it. This movie does carry with it a feeling. In every frame, in every shot, in every scene, it has soul. It does. So, and that you can absolutely tell. That's a hallmark of a passion project. There's nothing cookie cutter about it, and that's
a good point.
Well, tip thine hat to that.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until, as you mentioned, Jones, when I was doing my research on it, I didn't realize that Bob Clark had directed this because. And gentlemen, I don't know if we've ever had this conversation, and it'll probably be something I will suggest for the list. I think Porky's is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. And in fact, it has, in what is my opinion, the funniest scene I think, in the history of comedy. So, you know, not that I could even really draw any kind of parallels to this movie, Two Porkies, because they are drastically different.
Yeah, they are not the
same. but yeah, I thought that was really interesting that that this gentleman made one of the, you know, just hallmark holiday films in the history of cinema. You know, and that's really what, you know, whether I like it or not, I'm not going to discredit its place in the pantheon, right?
No, I will later, but right now.
Oh yeah, well no, I'm just going to be respectful at this point. We
haven't gotten fired up about it yet.
Before I El Hombre Mysterioso drop my pants all over it. Yeah,
real quick, here's a fun fact. Actually, and you probably already know this, Mac. This movie was the inspiration for the Wonder Years.
I did catch that, and
it makes sense.
And fun fact, I love the Wonder Years. It's a great show.
And I hate the Wonder Years.
Fun fact, I also
it's not surprising.
No, when I discovered that, I was like, you know what? That makes complete sense.
It really does.
Oh man,
that vein is just consistent.
You absolutely picked something that childhood Noah disliked more than this movie was the fucking Wonder Years.
Oh, how did you not like the Wonder Years?
Every single character. This is something that this movie is going to have in common with the Wonder Years. Nearly every single character in the Wonder Years is a piece of fucking shit and reacts poorly to every possible fucking situation. And
so they're like real people.
Yeah, like real people, which is what I want to get lost in, is real people being real people. Especially, you know what? I'm going to pick my microphone up so it's real close to my face. Especially you, fucking Winnie Cooper. You a bitch. I'm calling it out. There's two types of people in the world. There's people that tolerate useless people like Winnie Cooper, and those of us that are trying to bring a change. The revolution will be televised, Winnie Cooper. The revolution will be televised. But anyway, let's get on to the movie and not the Wonder Years ever again. Fucking Daniel Stern. Daniel Stern's like the only saving grace of that show.
I know. No, what I'm saying is it bothers me that that's where he was getting his paycheck for a while. Right. I was very upset to know that one of my all-time favorite movie villains from the Wet Bandits was the fucking narrator.
City Slickers, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get started with this movie. So you know, we get the pan and we get the opening shot, which so positive. I'm gonna do a compliment sandwich here. Okay, to seem like I'm not being too angry yet. Positive, the set design is amazing in this movie. By set design, they probably just shot in actual locations that look like it, but you get the feeling of a time era long gone. And Christmas and this time era
for sure.
Long gone.
Well, you know, that's Cleveland for you, Noah.
Yeah.
Cleveland hasn't advanced past 1940.
Well, I mean, it was not shot in Cleveland and in Canada.
Yeah.
Yes. But the movie is supposed to take place in an unknown Indiana town, essentially. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take out some spoiler problems with this movie right away. So two of my problems, here's the meat in the middle of the compliment sandwich, the bullshit. Number one is it really pisses me off that this movie opens up in the sequence it does, and then the next 2/3 of the movie take place in a flashback from this first scene, which wouldn't piss me off if we didn't get no less than 3 dream sequences within a flashback. It's like, what the fuck are you trying to do to me narratively here? But most importantly, and the thing that drove me crazy the whole time watching this that I never cared about as a kid, was trying to figure out when this movie is supposed to take place.
1940s.
Okay, yes, 1940s, you think. Now, bear with me here on this one, because it drove me so crazy that I did some fucking Sherlock Holmes shit to try to figure this thing out deductively. Now, all the cars look like they were from the 30s and 40s, okay? And you are in the era of Wild West marketing, which puts it post-World War II. And in the opening scene, where they're looking at the Red Ryder BB gun and the train set and all the animatronic shit, you see a man and a woman in military dress stuff. So that would put you post-World War II. However, when we go to Ralphie's school, we see that there are people of color in his school, and Indiana wasn't desegregated until 1949. So
I would say, again, taking my childhood glasses off of this movie and my adult glasses and putting them on and watching the movie, I instantly noticed that probably for the first time ever. Because as a kid, I didn't give a shit, right?
No.
Like, why would I care?
No.
I always knew growing up it was a long time ago type of setting, but I didn't really click. But I'm watching it the other night, and I'm like, but I feel the reason that's the case is because who gives a shit? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's probably why that was a thing.
I mean, it was 1983, so no one probably ever... I'm not trying to say they were trying to be historically accurate in that regard.
I don't think they were trying to be accurate on the level that you kind of were assuming they should be.
Well, yes. So what the thing is that when you start showing up with all these really nice old cars and you get this old-timey kind of feel, but there is no television, it gave me this weird time frame thing where I just, like... I couldn't narratively get into the movie until I figured out when.
You're thinking way too deep into that one, but I see what you're saying.
I'm trying to enjoy this from a filmmaking aspect, not from how it makes me feel, because I started to feel terrible about it the moment that I got to see the goddamn A Christmas Story come across my fucking screen. So I'm trying to help myself out here. So I narrowed it down so I can try to keep reminding myself that this movie has to take place between 49 and 51, because that's when TV was launched in that area of the country. And people would have stopped listening to the radio and started watching cowboy shows on television. So let's, for the sake of all intents and purposes, say 1949 to 1950 for this movie.
I mean, because we can't. Yes.
Sandwich. I'm gonna back up until you say something that pisses me
off. So I think the beginning of the movie is one of the weaker points, but I thought that before. Now going back and watching it, I actually really appreciate it more than I thought I would. The scene where they were in Higbee's looking through the glass, I always thought was kind of silly. Who cares about that? But then I realized that's very parallel with me as a kid looking in the Hills magazine, right? I didn't go to like Kaufman's downtown on Smithfield. I didn't do that. That's what people did a long time ago. But I had the Toys R Us book, the KB Toys book. I had the Hills book, the Ames book, and I don't know about you, but I would go through and flip through all the pages, and I would circle the things that I wanted that I probably would never get for Christmas, but I would always circle them and magically find a way to put them close to my parents so they know that I want the Power Wheels and I never got. You know what I mean? But that's what that made me think about. I'm like, that's that feeling, like fantasizing over that toy, that one thing. And that's like a lot of this movie for me, again, looking at it now, it's the mind of a child, right? It's the imagination of a child. Like one of the coolest points of this film that I realized never noticed before is that, like, when you're a kid, when you're young, because Ralphie's supposed to be like 9 or so years old. When you're young, 6, 7, 8 years old, like, you know your parents, you know them pretty well at this point. You have a working knowledge of who they are as people. You know they have names. You don't call them by their names unless you're a piece of shit. They're just mom and dad. In the movie, It's just the old man and mother. Right? You get one side of the parents, really. You get Ralphie's perspective on the world. And I really appreciate that's the version you get. An old man's name could have been Paul for all we know. It doesn't matter because it's just the old man. Like, I don't think I've ever called my dad Herb ever. I never will. You know what I mean? He's his dad. I just thought that was really interesting that, like, I never noticed how much of this is just from the perspective of a 9-year-old.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, I going back to that opening scene, Jones, do you notice that Ralphie is, when he's looking through the window and he's trying to position himself so he can see the BB gun, that he's actually reading? You can see when he's mouthing at the window that he is mouthing the script that's on the sign of the BB gun, as he just starts to just really go down that rabbit hole of that gift. And
no, I didn't.
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that and did a little bit of research and was able to kind of confirm it. I was like, what was he mouthing there? I was like, is that? And then kind of caught it. But I think, you know, as you said, Noah, I'll kind of give it a positive piece here. You know, we all had that toy as a kid. that we all wanted, that was out of reach. You know, it was always seemingly you want it, you maybe ask for it every year, it's a pipe dream, but there's that hope, that Christmas hope that you might get that gift. And, you know, watching this again through a second time and trying to look at it from an objective point of view, that was something that I was able to kind of like, you know, I can relate to that, you know, and like you said too, Jones, about just the Hills catalog. And, you know, for my mom, she'd always get the Kaufman's catalog or the Sears catalog. And, you know, those things were like encyclopedias. And there's 3/4 of that thing that meant absolutely nothing to you. And you just hope you
absolutely
got no, if you got,
just went straight to the toy section.
If you got
those
to like
6 double-sided pages, they were everything. And they were, and it was always great because they had all the toys laid out. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, well, here's a Ninja Turtle and here's a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, you're right.
It was a fucking scene.
Hope Express,
with vehicles and action. And it just wasn't like pumping you up that these are the toys you could get. These are the stories you could kind of tell. And I did like that aspect, you know, when you're talking about Noah, about the dream sequences within the flashback. I could relate to that too. Just because, you know, I don't know about you guys as you've gotten older. Christmas to me almost seems like a fucking blitz anymore as an adult, right?
A little bit, yeah.
But as a kid, it was the longest like month of my life. From December,
it was the most important day of the year outside of your birthday.
Just everything surrounded Christmas. But it also felt like it just took forever to get there. And then once you got there, and you're on break from school and everything, it still felt like it lasted forever.
Oh my God. I was just thinking about that when we did the Nintendo 64 episode, because I got a 64 for Christmas. And it felt like I played that game for like 40 hours on Christmas Day. You know, and then all week I had sun up to sun down, just all the time in the world to play the N64. And I never went away. And now it seems like if I get a couple of days off in a row, I'll wake up, I'll make myself eggs, and before I realize it, it's 5 days later.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened?
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to like to me the theme of this movie now, because I should have prefaced this earlier. I grew up watching this movie every year. Like it was just, that's what we did. We only watched it once a year. Like it was never like a thing where like we watched it a bunch of times. It was just like Christmas Eve, my sister and I and my mom would sit and watch it, have a good time, and then time for bed. And then from like ages probably like 11 to now, I would watch it, but not watch it. Like I wouldn't really pay attention to it because I was so used to it. But like I wasn't digesting it anymore, which is why sitting and really watching it. Allie and I, my wife, we sat and watched it the other night. Really was fascinating, and like the theme of it's the perspective. It's that it is this long journey. Everything's the most important thing ever in that moment. There's a couple lines that I thought were fucking spectacular that I had no recollection of, but now make total sense to me and as an adult. It is the one scene after he gets like beat up by Farkas. What was his name? Farkas. Yeah, Scud Farkas. And he says, in the jungles of kiddom, the mind shifts gears rapidly. And I'm like, because that's when he like went and saw the thing in the mail. Like it's like everything was awful, not anymore. And like that's what it's like to be a kid. Like I remember that. Like you'd be having the worst day ever at school. You come home and there's a present waiting for you, or there's something going on, and you totally forgot about everything that just happened at school. And your brain has now gone to something else, tunnel vision somewhere else. There's just some really cool lines that like really give you the perspective of a 9-year-old. It's just pretty cool.
So there are some films that are made that are very quintessential American films, right? About the American experience. And, you know, I think Christmas Story kind of falls into that category. Now, Jones, as your wife being somebody not born here, what was her perspective on the movie? Did she have any kind of affinity for it? That seeing it, like what would her thoughts?
She'd seen it before. She didn't remember how long ago she'd seen it before, but she'd seen it before. So we sat and we watched it, and she loved it. She thought it was cute and it was a fun movie. I actually proceeded to tell her that you guys didn't like it, and she was so baffled. Like, how could they not like this movie? It's just fun. It's a warm-hearted, lighthearted film about a kid. And I'm like, I know, but to each their own. There's some parts that she didn't like, and here's the thing that she and I talked about. I'm glad she and I talked about this because we're going to talk about this. I'm not even sure how much of this movie we're really going to break down outside of like the overarching themes, because there's something you said, Noah, that I thought was really telling, very specifically to me, via text message the other day. You said there's no relatable characters at all. And so relatable to me obviously means relating to you. You cannot connect with any of them. I, however, 100% can. My upbringing was very different from yours, I think, in that regard. So my wife says to me, after we watched the movie, she's like, you know what I really didn't like? Like, the one thing she really didn't like was how Ralphie, upon getting in the fight, thinks that his dad is going to kick his ass, basically, for getting in a fight and swearing and all this stuff. He's laying in bed, he's crying, he's scared, he's waiting to hear that car coming up the hill. And she didn't like that because she's like, no one should ever be afraid of their father. And I said, well, dads have that effect on you, you know. But her dad was a different. She was the princess. It was different. See, me, my dad was a very intimidating guy. He's a big dude. He was the disciplinarian. He was the spanker. He was the whole 9 yards. I had been in that position before. Got in trouble at school. Something happened. And my mom would say, go to your room. Wait till your father gets home. We all know that feeling. And I would just lay there, just staring at the ceiling, waiting for impending doom, thinking my dad's going to throw me out of a window or something. Like, I connect with that so deeply because it was there. Like, I experienced those feelings. And I think it's just cool to see that on cinema. And again, looking back at it now, I didn't realize how much I connected with it. Now as an adult going, yeah, I know what Ralphie's going through. I know that. And then hearing the car coming up the street, I know that feeling too. I know exactly what that's like. And you're like, shit. You know, but yeah, she really enjoyed it. She, I wouldn't say she loved the movie or anything like that, but she really enjoyed it. And normally, I can tell if she's not really digging it. She starts playing on the phone, stuff like that. But she was laughing, chuckling with the movie. You know, I was actually pretty surprised. I thought she wouldn't like it, like as much as she did.
So I want to, as we get into the movie, I just want to kind of preface here for the audience, and you know, if anybody's in South America, please check on Peru. I'm really concerned at this point. I hope it's okay. You know, I hope nobody knocked the plug out of the wall by accident. You're just not sure why it's not been plugged back in. But somebody please just drive by, just see if the lights are on. You know, just be sure.
Check in.
I didn't just check in. I didn't see Christmas Story as a child. It was never something that we watched in my household. We had a whole different slew of Christmas movies that my family wanted to watch. So I never saw. So my pinnacle of holiday cheer is Christmas Vacation. That is the traditional movie. Well, exactly, Jones. Yeah, I watched that as a kid. So that
it's okay.
That should explain a few things.
I don't think it's that great.
I still howl at that movie every time I watch it.
Oh, the movie's hilarious.
It's so funny.
Can I say I don't feel like Chevy Chase is very funny?
Oh, he's not. He's absolutely not funny. Like, he's not funny under any circumstances. However, the people who make these movies know exactly how to take dry ass saltine cracker style Chevy Chase. If the saltine cracker was really mad at Bill Murray for absolutely unfounded reason,
oh my God,
it would be Chevy Chase, right?
Chevy Chase.
And they take the saltine cracker and they put it in fucking amazing roles. That's why Randy Quaid steals the entire fucking movie the minute he shows up in that movie, and in every other vacation movie he's in, because Chevy Chase needs someone wetter than him to be in the movie. See Dan Aykroyd in Nothing But Trouble or Spies Like Us, right? See every other fucking Chevy Chase movie. Now, it works because Chevy Chase is so big and tall and like an unfunny saltine cracker, jolly green giant angry man, that it works because they figure out how to use him. But no, I would absolutely say that I can simultaneously agree that Chevy Chase is not funny, but his films are absolutely enjoyable.
And
because of that.
I was going to say, so I will disagree with you on the comedic genius that is Chevy Chase, because I do think that there is a genius there, because you are right. He does play the everyman in the movies that he's in. And you got to keep in mind too, there's a point in the 80s where Chevy Chase was probably one of the greatest leading men.
Huge box office.
Yeah. Sure. But I think I disagree where there isn't where he's just a saltine cracker. I think that there is a rhythm and a cadence that he plays to, which is where his comedic timing is. It's a little bit of the everyman, but also a little bit of an arrogant jackass.
Oh, full on arrogant. Yeah, everyman. Yeah.
But because of that, he allows those larger than life characters to be able to play out. And that's not an easy thing to do. And but we'll I'm sure one day talk about Christmas Vacation or any of the vacation movies in those regards.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I think that for next year's holiday series, I think we could invest in there's some other Christmas oriented films that we absolutely need to talk about for next year. I think Vacation's one of them. I'm just going to go ahead and drop it right now. We absolutely need to talk about Jingle All the Way, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. Just for the sake of fucking talking about that movie, right? Just because I feel like we were covering films with that each of us have unique emotional investments to this year. Next year we should cover some different things.
Well, and we are covering we will be talking about my all-time favorite Christmas movie, and I will say it again, my all-time favorite Christmas movie, which is taking place at Nakatomi Tower.
Christmas party. Welcome to the party, pal.
Just as we'll say, that is my all-time number one, and Christmas Vacation is my number two. I have
a theory. A mutual friend of ours, Mikey V, who would probably never listen to this podcast, so I can mention his name. He recently posted his top 10 Christmas movies of all time, and he makes it a real big point to put this movie, Christmas Story, on there, next week's movie, Scrooged, on there, but makes it a super point to point out that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. To which, first of all, Mike, you're fucking wrong. Like a lot of things, you're just fucking wrong. But here's my theory, and we'll save it for the day that we cover this other movie. If you don't consider Die Hard a Christmas movie, and you don't consider Lethal Weapon a Christmas movie, and you don't consider what I think is the best Christmas movie ever made, Rocky IV, a Christmas movie, then Home Alone is not a Christmas movie. Because those four movies all take place at Christmas. They feature modern Christmas sequences, but the plot is not driven by Christmas at all. No one learns a Christmas lesson. The movie could have taken place all four movies could have taken place in the middle of July, and it wouldn't make any difference to the plot. However, we easily call Home Alone a Christmas movie, but we don't call Die Hard or Rocky IV a Christmas movie. We will break that down in the Die Hard episode. But like you, Mac, we never watched A Christmas Story growing up as a kid. Occasionally it would come on TV, and it would be there in the background. But the movie always weirded me out. I never liked the feeling of it as a kid. But that's not the vibe of those comedy movies. Christmas Vacation was one of them. And, of course, next week's movie, which is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. Not the best, but my favorite, is Scrooge. That's the vibe that happened in my house on Christmas. So
yeah, we were Scrooged, Christmas Vacation. I was huge on Home Alone as a kid.
Oh, it's a fun movie. Fun as hell.
Yeah. And then as I
have opinions about Home Alone, but
again, I'm just dropping, movie names here, but that was the thing, is that Christmas Story was never in the rotation. So I didn't see this until I was in my early 30s. I think, Jones, it was probably after the time that you had moved out and right about the time that Ryan had moved out. And this was really when I was finally living like on my own for the first time. And then it's around Christmas time. We'd already done the family stuff. And I'm just sitting at the house. I'm like, all right, Christmas Story is on. Fuck it. I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. And then like 10 minutes into it, I'm like, what the fuck? am I watching? And why does, and I think that my point too wasn't even necessarily what am I watching, but I was trying to wrap my head around, like, you know, when I watch a film, I really look for something to grab onto, something that's going to draw me in, that's going to hook me. And Christmas Story just didn't have it. And I'm thinking to myself, people fucking blow this movie at Christmas time. And like they're on their knees, they're working the shaft, they're cradling the balls, they're taking the gravy. I mean, it's hardcore. And I'm just like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I know the BB gun, and I know the bunny onesie, and the tongue to the pole, and like I know the points, I know the hits. But it didn't grab me on that emotional level. And I do think that part of the reason that it didn't is that I didn't see it as a kid. You know, I do think that the movie through the lens of a child at that age or around that age probably gives you a greater level of connectivity to the theme of the movie than maybe seeing it as an adult with, you know, maybe more jaded eyes at that stage of my life. So, and I think that's part of the reason why I just don't kind of grab onto it like everybody else does. Just the time in life when I saw it. But, you know, like you said too, Jones, the relatability of laying in bed waiting for your dad to come home. Now I had a different feeling about that, because like, there are a few points in the movie, and I don't think they mean to do this on purpose, but I kind of get some ideas because he just refers to him as the old man, not his dad, not his father, that there's some level of like emotional disconnect between like, maybe him and
definitely.
His father. And
there's so much to that. Yes.
Well, but that's the thing that I'm thinking is that like, what kind of a man really was the old man?
You watched that movie.
Oh yeah.
Take a second and think about this for a second.
Oh no, I've thought about it. I'm serving up here so you guys can take it. But
the layers to these characters, right? I think is really fascinating. Again, never really paid attention to it.
Yeah.
Like if you really sit and you're watching the movie, and you're looking at the old man. He spends most of the beginning of the movie paying zero attention to what's going on. He's buried in his newspaper, talking about bullshit no one cares about. Right. Meanwhile, the disheveled, robe-laden mother is handling the housework, getting shit done, right?
Hasn't had a warm meal in
15 years.
15 years, that's it. Yeah, 15 years.
There's so much, but you see a spark of energy, of life, when he wins that major award, right? Like, I think when I was a kid, I thought that the old man was like probably my least favorite character of the whole film. He's not my favorite, because he had like a strange journey he went on. From being a disassociated father, I mean, he's, you know, breadwinner, he, you know, fixes things, he battles the boiler or the furnace in the basement, swearing and mumbo jumbo, to having all this energy, this youthful exuberance when he gets this major award, right? It's the only thing it really seems like he really cares about. And to watch, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I absolutely picked that up as well. He always, I mean, I'm not going to criticize a fictional character's parenting unless it's awful. And I think the idea that we as a society have gone past, hopefully, to a certain point of like in order to have a functioning family unit in this time, the male figure is the disconnected father. The mother is the overworked, completely overinvested caretaker, and the children are off in their own world. That being said, you can see, I think he has two moments of purely genuine, positive excitement in this movie. And I think it speaks well to the character's depth that I never caught before. One is when he gets the lamp, because this is a moment where, sure, it's weird because when people are disconnected, you kind of generally assume they're selfish, right? Because they're off in their own world. But I think he's just so concerned with those momentary breaks and beating the shit out of a furnace, fending off a roving pack of dogs.
Yeah, that's when he becomes alive, not with his kids. Not with
it's
his
a moment
wife.
that he's genuinely excited for himself.
He's genuinely excited when the dog's tail is stuck in the door and the dog is screeching.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the negative sense. He absolutely.
I mean, like he's like, oh, the dog is being abused and in pain.
He's like, huh, then that'll teach you.
Think about it. Here's another thing that I think is interesting, outside of the fact that the Bumpus's dogs have their own theme, which is amazing. But that you're right. The old man, and again, here's the thing. You're only seeing the old man through the eyes of the 9-year-old. You don't see really anything other than what Ralphie really sees. Now, there are some scenes where we get to see different characters existing without Ralphie in the room. But that needs to happen, of course. But you're really just seeing the old man as Ralphie saw him as a 9-year-old, or maybe how he still sees him, right? Or how Gene Shepard saw his dad, right?
Yeah.
You get to see Mother, how Gene Shepard saw his mom, because these are stories about him growing up, effectively.
I think narratively, Christmas Day happens, and that's where you start to see the characters separate themselves from Ralphie's perspective. Because that's when you see the majority of the mom and dad interacting without anybody else. They're in the kitchen with the turkey. They're at the end of the movie sitting in the chair watching the snow. So I think it's almost like Ralphie gets to the finish line, and you get to see characters how they look. The other point I was going to make about it was the only other time you see the dad genuinely emotional, and it's the most heartwarming part of the whole movie, is how excited he is for Ralphie to find the gun.
Yeah, it really stands out.
That's the most powerful scene in the movie. For as much as I disliked a large portion of this movie, when I got to that scene, regardless of the fact that I felt myself my face hurt from rolling my eyes so many times, when I got to that point in that movie, I was invested, and I felt the dad's happiness. And there's that actor nailing it, and that whole thing, and he's doing that, like the little motions, like he's excited for the kid to experience it, and it was a moment of genuine in that.
But see, I will disagree with you slightly about the fact that you don't get to see the characters really participate outside of Ralphie's perspective, because I think especially in the first act of the movie, you really get that the mother is subservient, like majorly subservient to father, and that she is not able to really express a whole lot. She's always having to get up and get everybody's food at dinner time. Nobody's getting it for themselves. When the leg lamp shows up, she wants to express how much she likes it, but she's almost afraid to. I just
how much she hates it.
Yeah, she hates it.
No, I know she hates it, but like she can't. She really can't vocalize it in really any way. And I get a weird feeling that was how really stern was the old man as a father?
He was clearly very stern.
I mean, are we talking stern at the level of just being abusive to his family, that they portrayed him in such a way? I mean, the fact, and another part that really stood out to me was that not only was Ralphie concerned, as anybody is when dad's coming home, you think he'll be in trouble, but like his brother was hiding under the sink.
And daddy's going to kill Ralphie.
Daddy's going to kill Ralphie, right? And it's like, well, what other things were going on in this life where they would really get that impression that he was going to kill his son?
I don't know if you know what the world was like for people back then.
Oh no, I do.
Disciplining wasn't just getting smacked in the back of the head or a spanking here or there.
Yeah.
But I will reference you to Ralphie swearing and then lying about where he got it from, and listening to his friend's mom murder his friend, and you could hear her having an out-of-body experience, beating the hell out of this poor child.
That's the other note I wanted to add in about, and we'll segue this into a thing about Ralphie, but this is about the dad's authoritarianism, which I guess is a lot of ways that when you look at loved abusive figures in both film and in real life, is that you see the positive of them and the hyper gentleness when they want to be, and then the fear is that Ralphie was so afraid of his dad that when the keen opportunity that he could honestly just be truthful and admit that he'd heard fuck from his dad before, but he wouldn't say it.
10 times a day.
Yes, 10 times a day, which is like, you almost like think the mom just wanted him to say the dad. So she knew, right? Because obviously she heard it too, if Ralphie heard it. But that he was so terrified not to tell his mom the truth, that her own husband is the one that says the word, that he would sell his friend to a vicious beating down the river, because he's probably terrified that just by telling the truth, he himself would be in store for a vicious beating. Yeah. So the dad's a complex character. Loving father figure on one end, abusive warmonger on the other, and animal abuser. Let's not forget about that.
And a little fun note, Jack Nicholson was originally slated to play that character.
That would fit.
It would have been interesting. I'm not sure how that would have played out, but it would have been real interesting.
That was what Jack Nicholson did in 1983. He terrorized women.
Terrorized families.
And then he tortured animals. And then he won Oscars for.
The studio was worried that he would his price was too high. They would have doubled the budget of the film. So, but I think honestly, McCavin did a better job anyhow. Honestly,
can you imagine the Joker being also the father in A Christmas Story? Like, can you wrap yourself around that a little bit? Like, he's just sitting there, like, lustfully looking at the turkey in the film, being like, "Wait till you get a load of me." You know, like that was so trippy about that, right? Like, but I often wonder too. It's like, would it have doubled the budget of the film? Yeah, would it probably double the receipts because Jack fucking Nicholson was in
1983? Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
I think a better casting job was made. Honestly,
well, it
fits. It fits.
It really does
the narrative. Yeah.
And let's move on to the other parental figure, the mom, who I maintain is the only decent person in this entire goddamn movie. Is the mom. And she's an asshat for a lot of the movie, but she's the only person who doesn't really sell anybody out to save her own ass in the movie, which literally almost every character does in this movie, but the mom sells somebody out to save their own ass, except the little brother. We'll cover in a second.
But isn't that what people do?
Yeah, but again, here's the thing: is that this is supposed to be a Christmas family movie, not a fucking diehard ghetto drama about the rigors of human existence in a post-war Indiana Lake Michigan restaurant. I mean, because it's fucking not. It's like, okay, well, Turner and Hooch could be an existential commentary on postmodernism in a fucking late-setting neo-noir cop film, but it's fucking not. It's about Tom Hanks and a fucking dog, Jones. Okay? This movie
A Christmas Story is about some guy's experience growing up. Now, whether you find it funny or not doesn't really matter. This is a story that they wanted to tell. You know what I mean? Like, I see what you're saying, but you're overselling it a little bit. Like, the point you're making is valid, but at the same time, these characters don't have to adhere to what you think they're supposed to be.
Of course not. But
whether I like it or you like it, they are in fact who they are, and the story is told through the eyes of a child.
Well, yes,
we only get to see. Children are selfish. They only think about themselves.
I guess what I'm saying is that in a film, and this could go into how I feel about the film. In a film that when I watch a Christmas movie, especially one that I don't expressly consider a drama, I would like a relatable concept, or at least something that would make me feel good. And generally that means a relatable character that isn't a piece of shit, that I can follow their journey or learning the spirit of Christmas. No one in this movie learns the spirit of Christmas. No, with the exception of the mom, everybody goes through their own insane horse shit. And I guess it ends to the idea that there is only but one decent and henceforth relatable character in this film, and it is the mom, who is a downtrodden, stereotypical housewife, which, by the way, if for a film that I, again, have mentioned takes place in 1949, 1950, that woman has maybe the most 1983 perm in the history of cinema. Like, you could have slapped something on there to try to, because immediately I just think Saturday Night Fever.
Listen, the production budget went into, outfitting the kitchen, man. It didn't go into hair and makeup. I mean, for most of the movie, people were wearing hats outside. So,
right. Yeah, a lot of side parts on the
Good point.
Yeah, but she got that full Kate Capshaw Temple of Doom look going
she
on.
Absolutely has Kate Capshaw Temple of Doom.
Yeah,
for sure.
Took me out of it, but she's very sweet. The only thing
Noah, let me piggyback off that real quick here before I let you go. There are times I'm looking at this where I thought it was Kate Capshaw from Temple of Doom.
Yeah,
like it was taller than Kate Capshaw. Yeah, I mean there was a lot to that. But go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, so she's pretty much, in my opinion, the only decent character in the movie. But I just want to point out, I'm gonna bring up my notes so I can see exactly how I wrote it down. And it's satisfying to me because I don't like Ralphie in the entire movie, but she is a decent person who's just trying to get through the goddamn day into the bottom of all the situations, right? that shows no real maliciousness until the bunny suit. She knows he hates it. She knows that no human being would want to be in that. But she makes him do it because all the shit Ralphie makes her do. And just for a minute, she gets her shit going on.
Well, I will disagree with you there, Noah. I think that she is actually the catalyst of the most malicious moment of the entire film.
Do tell.
She fucking broke the leg lamp. Don't think that she didn't.
No, that's the plot was fantastic.
I accidentally bumped it while I was watering the flower. Please.
She swung her water basin right into it.
Maliciously and calculatedly destroyed that lamp to the point of no return.
Now, I would agree. I would agree with that. But however, I do like how they could have shown her do that. But in order to keep the mom, which I'm sure is the Gene saw his own mother. In a lot of ways, we see our own mothers, right? To keep the mom with the angelic status, left it up to speculation because Ralphie didn't see her break the lamp. Yeah. So we don't see her break the lamp.
Who did it? What happened?
Right? What happened?
And like in the narrator, and the narrator is probably one of the best parts of this whole film in terms of just selling things, right? Like, and this moment went on in infamy in my family for decades to come. Like, it's like, yeah, we all have those stories. We all have those.
The narrator is the second best performer in this whole movie.
He does such a great job.
Yeah. And I had such a problem with the narrator because his voice did not line up for me in my mind of how old he should be when he was telling the story. Like, he sounded to me like he was telling this in his late 60s, early 70s to his grandkids. Yeah. But I feel like that this was because, I mean, it was clearly, the narrator was clearly positioned to be similar to the narrator that we would get from like Frosty the Snowman and, you know, like some of those Christmas movies that we got as kids.
Well, I mean, the narrator is the writer of the movie. It is Gene Shepherd.
No, I know, but I'm just saying,
as far as the tonal and
the tone of how he was saying everything.
I mean, that's how the man talks.
Yeah.
But without us knowing it, that's this real guy. And
I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, so. And I put that together. But I'm agreeing with you, Dave. Just kind of spin what you're saying is that the tone of it sounds like this is a weird professional guy they got, not a real guy telling that story. Without knowing that in there, it just comes off as like he is neither hello there and welcome to Frosty's Land or super old man. It to me, just to kind of piggyback, it is half Daniel Stern from Wonder Years and half Peter Falk from Princess Bride.
Yes.
Right.
I agree.
Right in the middle.
I agree. Yeah. That's a good pull. But the narrator's like his voice, and I know what you're saying, Jones, because I was aware that it was the writer. That it didn't tonally, it just didn't fit. And I was having trouble placing how old he was telling the story. Because it didn't seem to me, like this seems to me a story that I would tell my kids. Like what Christmas was like growing up in our household and what your grandma and grandpa were like and things like that. Not like, it sounded to me like it was his grandfather telling it to his grandkids or something. And it was just giving me difficulty kind of pinpointing the time frame in which this was going on. And talking about a lot of the problems you had with it narratively, Noah, about when it's actually taking place.
I get hung up on shit like that. I know that's my own thing, right? But that's one of those types of things in movies where the
1980s didn't give a fuck about that. The 1980s were just happy to.
It's one of those things like when I see people, because I think it's not the sidebar at all. But I was always under the impression, like my brain sees when it's a movie about disco, right? My brain says late 70s, right? But a lot of disco movies take place in the early 80s, so it always fucks with me. Movies like that, that are quote unquote the 60s, a lot of that stuff like Led Zeppelin and that whole Dazed and Confused, that's early 70s, not late 60s, and it fucks with me. So I find sometimes if I'm not super driven by something, I focus on a minutia thing. When was this movie made? What era? What am I supposed to be feeling and thinking? Please continue. I'm sorry. That's my own hang up.
But she fucking dropped that leg lamp like the aliens dropped the Empire State Building and Independence Day. Mm-hmm. She did it without mercy. She didn't give a shit. People were on the roof dancing and welcoming them. She found her moment when the furnace was on the fritz again to go ahead and strike.
That's right.
Well, this woman, this poor downtrodden woman, has nothing in this world except that house and that family. And now she has to display this lamp, which I want to talk about the lamp here in a second, in her front window. And the entire neighborhood knows about it. And she's embarrassed. And she drops that leg like Hulk Hogan in 1987. That's what she fucking does. But I want to mention the lamp. Here's a detail about the lamp that I never noticed, and I apologize if anyone else has always noticed this, and this is just new to me, but I picked it up for the first time watching this. We all know the iconic leg lamp with the stockings, right? I never noticed the bottom quarter of the ass cheek until now. It's like the full bottom quarter of the ass cheek. I never noticed it. And at that point, I'm like, okay. Feels like a leg. What the fuck is sexy about a disembodied leg unless you're a fucking serial?
Not much.
But all of a sudden, you add 25% of a disembodied ass, and now you're talking, right?
Well, the leg lamp was so much so that it actually gave the movie a mild sexual rating. If you look on like websites like IMDb today or Metacritic or things like that, when we talk about the things of the movie, there's a mild sex appeal to it because of that fucking lamp.
That's pretty cool.
I couldn't believe that when I saw that. I was like, where's their sexual themes? And it's because there's some ass cheek on the lamp.
There's some cheek there.
There's some cheek.
Audiences in 1983 so starved for anything that the ass cheek of a plastic lamp, they're like, oh shit, yeah. Picture the other half of that lamp, right?
I do like when Ralphie goes to like put his hand up the leg a little bit and the mom smacks it away. Like, don't you fucking dare.
Ralphie knows where the cookies are at. I'd say that. Like he's immediately like,
that's funny.
Well, speaking of Ralphie, I'm gonna get my feelings out there, and I want you guys to get in here. I guess if I had to sum up my feelings about our main central character, this young boy on this journey of getting what he's wanted and dealing with society and nondescript olden times Indiana, the only real way I can describe my feelings to the character is fuck you. Because he's a piece of shit, okay? I don't like him. I don't like his motivations. I don't like his attitude. I don't like his face. I don't like his side part. And I have a side part right now, and I don't like him, okay? I don't like anything about it. I don't like anything about him or the way he conducts himself, the way he talks to his mother. The only thing that redeems Ralphie slightly to me, and it's not enough to full on do it, is the only character in this movie that I dislike more than Ralphie is his shitty little brother.
Randy's little asshole.
Yeah, a little Randy. I feel like I do not. Ralphie's a piece of shit for leaving his little brother behind, waddling like a turtle a bunch of times, but I don't blame him. That being said, I got satisfaction watching that little shit suffer in the fucking pink bunny suit, knowing that he went through all the shit out. And it brought me dark joy to see him shoot his eye out in the finale of the movie. It absolutely came to pass, and it worked for me. I'm just pissed he got away with it.
Oh, he sold it so hard.
I have feelings about that scene, but I'll save that.
How do you feel about Ralphie?
Doc. Yeah, good. Yeah, good, Doc.
Well, I mean, Ralphie's
our perspective in this movie.
I mean, I don't love the character. I definitely don't dislike the character. I've never really connected with the character outside of the character's motivations. Because, like all children, you just want your shit. You want your bag. You want your toys. You don't give a shit about anybody else but yourself. Even when you're being unselfish, you're still being selfish. Children, especially at 9 years old, have a really difficult time with being selfless for the right reasons. But I think that the best part of Ralphie's character is his imagination, his overactive imagination. I don't know about you guys, but as a kid, I'd sit in class and daydream about the X-Men busting through a wall and saving the day from Magneto.
I still do. My watch, it's been magnetized.
That's right.
I think about that literally every fucking day.
But in all seriousness, I think Ralphie is a very real character. Like a very real. This is how the kid wants his goddamn toy, and he wants the one thing. Listen, if I had any inclination as a child that I could have somehow convinced my parents through hook or crook to get me a Power Wheels, I'd have fucking done it. Mm-hmm. And I have no shame. I'm not going to sit up and say I wouldn't have done it. I'd have fucking done it. I actually appreciate Ralphie's gangster with trying to put subtle hints in his mom's book and in her magazine, because that's smart shit that a kid would do. I think Ralphie's just he's just a fucking kid who's trying to get his bag, man, and I can't fault him for that. Is he selfish? Yep. Is he ungrateful? Yep. Because that's what kids do. That's what kids are. They don't know how to be thankful. Not really. They say thank you. Do they even know what that even means when they're a kid? No. They do it because we tell them to. I mean, realistically. But I can connect to Ralphie getting the gun for Christmas. I had no interest in having a fucking gun growing up, like a BB gun or a pellet gun.
Same.
But I did want a slingshot as a kid. And my mom was like, nah, that's not happening. And my dad snuck and gave me a slingshot because he had one growing up. And it was like one of those legit, like, professional slingshots that children are not supposed to have.
Mm-mm. Hunting slingshot, yeah.
And I fucking had one, and I used the shit out of it in the backyard, in the alleyway. The dad's only rule was no animals, which, why the fuck would I do that? I'm not a sociopath.
He just wanted to make sure you didn't turn into one.
Yeah.
Good parenting.
Yeah.
But when my mom found out, she was not happy.
No, she wouldn't.
And my dad, I remember dad's like, listen, I had one. I just like old man, like I had one. I was fine. And I remember him saying, do you not trust him? He's not responsible. And she's like, well, he is. I'm like, then trust him. I might have been like 10, 11 years old. I should not have had one. Should not have had one at all. I got into some shit with that thing. But the point is that I can relate to the idea of the kid wanting that thing and going through anything. There's actually another really cool line in the mall when he's going to see Santa Claus in that obnoxious scene. And obviously Ralphie doesn't believe in Santa Claus, right? Like, who the fuck believes in Santa Claus? But he does say, and I got such a kick out of it, let's face it, most of us are scoffers, but moments before 0 hour, it did not pay to take chances as he got in line to make his wish to Santa Claus. When I was a kid, never caught that line. As many times I've seen that scene, never caught the relevance, what that actually meant. There's no atheist in a foxhole, right?
Basically,
that's what that line means, right? And I thought that's kind of cool. And I'm like, I got to write that shit down because that's clever, actually. There's a lot of really good lines like that. But I think Ralphie is just a fucking 9-year-old kid. Like you said, and your opinion and your observation of these characters, Noah and Matt, are very accurate. They're fucking fault-ridden human beings. They all have redeeming qualities for sure. Randy fears for his brother's safety. Now, granted, Randy's like fucking like 6 years old, 5 years old. What the fuck does he know about the world? But he thinks that something bad's going to happen, right? I get it. The old man, disassociated father, potentially abusive, maybe not for the times, who knows, but cares enough about his son and pays attention to what he wants to get him the thing that he wanted most. The mom is the mom. She does her thing, right? And even Ralphie, even though the central character probably had the least amount of redeeming qualities, but I feel like he didn't have to, because we were on the ride with him. We were on that road to get to Christmas Day with him. He doesn't have to be this really cool Macaulay Culkin character. We're just on this road, and we're gonna see if he can get the thing that he wants the most, which he does, and it backfires on him.
Well, so you mentioned too about the dad picking up on it. The dad was the only person that Ralphie didn't ask for the BB gun. He asked Santa Claus. He asked his mother.
Does he ask him in the beginning?
No,
He mentions it.
He doesn't ask him.
The dinner table.
No, he doesn't mention the BB gun to his dad. He mentions it at the mom, and then he starts working himself up to mention it to the dad. And he drops that thing about grizzly bears.
That's right.
But he never full on mentions the gun to the dad.
And he mentions it to a school teacher. He mentions it to Santa Claus, but he never says it to the dad. But one of the things that I caught here watching it is that when he put the article in the magazine and he positioned the magazine, he put it on the other bed, which was his dad's bed. So at the beginning of the movie, his dad picking up the magazine, if it was on his bed, would have opened it right to the BB gun, which might lead to the reason too. And I would have to watch this again to see if I can pick up on it again, but see if I'm right about this. But I think that's the inkling that his dad gets right at the beginning of the movie, that he has an interest in the BB gun because his dad would have saw the magazine plant that he left. But I kind of go with you a little bit on the shows. You know, I knew a lot of Ralphies growing up, right?
Right.
And his character to me, now, although I go back with you, Noah, that the characters don't really have arcs in this movie. They don't really grow. You get a little bit of a different sense of dad at the end of the movie than you do from the beginning. He becomes a little bit more relatable. If your assumption is right, and again, I don't know if the filmmaker's intent was this or not, but you know, we're looking through the characters through Ralphie's eyes. And, you know, we could have that, you know, again, kids don't have minutia when it comes to emotions. Dad could just be the scary figure, even if dad wasn't a scary figure. We're reading in maybe that he was. But let's go ahead and say that he wasn't, and that was just the perception that Ralphie had of his father. And then when you start seeing the characters without Ralphie's eyes, and you start seeing them being more affectionate husband and wife and things like that, that's the character arc you get. Ralphie doesn't grow in this movie. He doesn't change. Nothing really kind of happens there. It's very basic. What does the main character want? Does he get it? And what happens along the way from establishing that he wants it to the end of the movie when does he or does he not have that payoff? But, you know, being the kid in the playground who is not a part of egging your friend on putting his tongue up on the pole and getting it frozen, but being there and watching it happening. And then once his tongue is frozen, being like, I have to go back. Like, I can't be here. Or then when Farkas shows up and his best friend comes back in with a black eye, Farkas clearly gave him. Same thing. I have to go. I have to get into the classroom, you know, just being able to kind of like run away from the situation, but then still being like observing through the window. You know, he's watching, you know, the teacher's like, where is, I can't remember the kid's name. Like, where is he? And they're all looking out the window and she finally sees him stuck to the pole and they're just watching through the window as the police show up and the fire department shows up. You know, I knew a lot of kids that were like that. Yeah. So I had some relatability with Ralphie in that world as being a kid who is, you know, not a predator. He's prey. And, you know, you're trying to survive. And how you see how he sucks up to his teacher all the time. You know, I knew a lot of kids like that. Dare I say I was probably one of those kids, you know, because again, I'm going to try to do whatever I can to get ahead in this classroom. So, you know, I did see some things about that with Ralphie that were relatable to my childhood, and kind of some of the situations that he was in. But he's again, he's a very focused character through the movie, but that doesn't show that there's any kind of growth. You mentioned Macaulay Culkin's character in Home Alone. In spite of everything that happens in that movie, he does have growth. You know, he starts as the kid at the beginning of the movie who wants to be very selfish, hates his family, hopes they all go away because he's the youngest or one of the youngest and he keeps getting stepped on, to the end of the movie wanting to have his family together at Christmas, even though he wished them away and you know, all those other things. He does kind of, you know, come around at that point. And again, you know, being the aficionado for 80s movies that I am, and, you know, having such an appreciation for all the cinema of that time, you didn't have to worry about that stuff in 80s movies so much. 80s movies weren't always there to teach you a lesson. Sometimes they're just there to give you a ride. You know, they were that ride at the amusement park that, you know, isn't flashy, isn't always, you know, the most exciting, but you always went on and rode it because you had that affinity for it. And, you know, I think this is one of those kind of films. So
I would agree with that.
Just to slightly disagree with you though there, I know if only they shit on Ralphie more, but those rides, they don't, at every possible opportunity, aren't so fearful that they sell every friend and ally they have down the river multiple times. Ralphie could have stopped the tongue thing. He could have waited with his friend to help him, but no, he runs. Then the teacher says, "Where's your friend?" He could have just sat outside and he would have got off scot-free, but he said no. He thrice denied knowledge of the tongue on the pole. Then the teacher goes, deals with it, comes back, and he still doesn't fucking own it.
Did you just
He bails on his friends not once but twice while they're getting bullied. He has an opportunity to tell the truth about his abusive dad. Is so fearful he doesn't, that he basically dooms one of those friends that he's already sold out, I couldn't pick out which one, to a death by whooping.
Dude, I'm pretty sure she might have murdered him.
Yeah, does all of this.
Well, I do like how he said that, like, he basically lived 3 blocks away and he could hear his friend getting his ass beat.
Dude, the noise that the mother was making was so ungodly.
Oh, it's like don't. I hope you never have to watch a YouTube video of an animal giving birth, but that's what it sounded like. Just with extreme levels of domestic abuse happening behind there. But I just generally found that there was no super redeeming quality, and I think the only real time Ralphie grows in the entire movie, and this is my segue, is the scene where he fights his bullies. Right,
dude.
And I think because our little sociopath finally snaps.
If you get a snowball to the eyeball that is pinned between your eyeball and your glasses,
that was such a good shot, man.
Yeah. You deserve to get your ass whooped for that.
So, fun fact about that scene: it took multiple takes to get that shot right because Billingsley, who plays Ralphie, kept not kind of keeping up with the shot, and so he would get hit in the face over and over again. And that last shot that they used, those tears were real because they just kept rolling with that shot because most of the shots didn't get up under the glasses like that, but that one did, and that was the perfect take, of course. So that look of pain and frustration was legit not acting, which is hilarious.
Good. But I find when you're trying to be a heel in the movie, and the 2 bullies were just told to go out there and be heels, and they fucking did, right?
They really were heels.
They were super heels, and you think as much as I hated Ralphie, that I would have rooted for the people that were trying to beat his ass. I didn't, because they were so good at being heels. They're like Dave and JBL. I just wanted to see them fucking crushed. Yeah. But that scene, let me get close for this. That scene gave me the best line in this entire movie. The very best line, because if you remember, just for the context, they're out of the schoolyard and they're like, "Come here." And they're like, "No." And they leave the one kid to get his ass whooped, right? Because they bail on him. They go inside.
I know what you're going to fucking say.
So later,
I fucking know what you're going to fucking say.
He throws the snowball and he looks at him dead in the eye and he says the most iconic line in this movie. And I wrote it down verbatim because I listened to it 9 times, so I couldn't forget about it. And he says, "When I tell you to come, you better come."
He did say that.
He fucking said it. Dead face, straight
with
face.
Those yellow eyes. I swear to God, he had yellow eyes.
Yellow eyes. And I paused the movie and I went and refreshed my tasty glass of iced tea and got a snack. And I just rewound it to make sure I heard what I fucking thought I heard. Out of context. My wife asked me, "So how did that go last night?" She doesn't like the movie. And I said, "Well, I found the best line in the movie. Maybe the best line in any Christmas movie." She said, "What's that?" And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, when I tell you to come, you come.
You know, it's similar to a couple years ago. I was listening to a Halloween playlist on, I think, iHeartRadio or maybe it was Pandora or something. And anytime you have a Halloween themed playlist, there's always two songs that are going to be on there right away. It's Thriller and then the Ghostbusters song. Mm-hmm. And I never caught with Ray Parker Jr. just going, "Bustin' makes me feel good."
Yes.
And I was just like,
yes.
I was like, I've been singing this since I was 5. And I'm now, for the first time in my life, a grown-ass man realizing that Bustin' makes me feel good.
I mean,
and
it's
like,
shit.
It's about shooting ectoplasm everywhere. God damn it. But is there a lie? That's what I ask.
Stop the lie, motherfucker. There is none.
Spitting truth.
That fight. So Ralphie proceeds to, rightly or wrongly, assault Scott Farkas for 1 minute and 21 seconds.
Well, that scene goes on way longer than I remember it going.
Dude, when he was done, let me rephrase that. When his mom ripped him away from him, he was bashing Scud's head off the ground.
Yeah, he was.
Like, he was going, had no one stopped him, he might have murdered him. I'm sure he concussed him. I'm sure he concussed the kid. He beat the living shit out of him. Of
course, in the era that this movie takes place, and they're like, wow, you've got what we could go. You got night demons. Do some cocaine about it. You'll be better in the morning, right? Like they would not have diagnosed that kid with
night demons.
That, like, there is a scene. There's a character in the reboot of It. If you guys have seen It,
saw the first one, the first reboot.
That's what I'm talking about. And the when they're all kids, the bully in It is very similar to the bully in A Christmas Story. They even look kind of similar.
I think that's done on purpose. For sure. Because that's what I thought of too when I saw him.
And in It, I remember thinking to myself, this dude's like got some homicidal tendencies. This is kind of fucked up.
I mean, there are a whole bunch of animals skinned on his basement wall. Yeah. He started with stuffed animals and then just graduated. And, you kind of see a little bit in of course, in an 80s way of that. But I was very, you always kind of forget because of the time we live in. We I don't know about you guys, but like I grew up in a time where I got into fights. I've punched guys in the face when I was in elementary school and middle school, and I've been punched in the face. And, my mom didn't go down the street to the kid's house to talk to his mom about it. It was like, well, are you guys done? Did you deal with it? And that was kind of it. Seeing that in this movie where, I'm going to call up your friend's mom and tell her what her son said, and not hearing the mom go, "Don't talk about my kid that way." That's not that my son would never do that. To not have that, to go back to the days when one mom said something to another mom, that was gospel. And it was
100% real. And then I'm just going to go beat the shit out of my kid.
You're just going to go assault my child.
Unmercifully. Like an unstoppable rebel force. I'm just going to beat the shit out of this kid.
I was, after watching that movie, finished my snack, went to the bathroom for going to bed, brushed my teeth, and I could hear that kid scream in my head through that phone as I'm like winding down my brain last night. Like, that's haunting, right? We saw the movie Silent Hill that had a scene where a woman had razor blades, razor wire come out of her vagina. And
that was a thing.
And it didn't stick with me as much as that poor child begging for God to save him. Not knowing, that's the thing. That's the most fucking heartless thing. And that's why Ralphie's a true piece of shit. Because that boy not only got his ass beat into where he not only met his maker, but he met every ancestor he ever had that day. But he didn't fucking know why. Because he didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything.
Ralphie caused that. As you're saying, Mac. Oh my god.
Well, no. I mean, it's just the other thing too. It's like as the mom comes to pull Ralphie off of Farkas, she doesn't even throw Farkas a towel and say, "Here, clean yourself off."
Oh, fuck that kid.
She just fucking left him there in a pool of his own blood, just laying there, probably with a cracked skull because Ralphie spent 20 minutes just banging his head off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And she just got up and walked him out, and then like brought him home, and like take him up to the bathroom, and like put a warm rag around his neck, and just says, "Go lay down." I mean,
Yep.
Just I was, and I know that it's such a different time than we live in now and everything, but we grew up in that time before that changed, and
Yep.
It's just because of the society we live in now. It's just almost so strange to see that, because that's not how it is now. Parents don't let kids sort things out themselves, and parents will blame other parents for something. They'll never say their kids were at fault, and we've definitely seen some change there, and dare I say, we probably lost a little something because of that.
I just got to go point up. So, two things. One, about Fargus. Now, if this was a real situation, because you came from me earlier, Doc, whenever I accused these characters of all being terrible and you said they were real. If that kid gets mercilessly beat for X amount of time and has his head pounded off the wall, gets up and walk on his own accord, knowing what we know about concussions and that kind of facial trauma, Fargus, and there's a reason why he's not in the rest of the movie, like, poor kid, probably not poor kid because he's a douchebag, probably died in his sleep that night, or had a seizure while his father's like, "I'm listening to the radio, quit shaking." And then they take him to the hospital and like, "No, he's got blood tremors. You're gonna have to get some leashes. You get a lobotomy because this is 1949 and we don't know what the fuck is going on." But
Farkas had an ass whipping coming for sure, and actually, Grover, the little one, his little sidekick is actually the evil paperboy from Better Off Dead.
Oh, fuck.
Which we will cover at some point.
Oh my god.
That's a movie I forgot all about, and I watched it way too many times at a young age. Too many times.
Jones. 15 weeks. That's 65 papers. That's $14 plus tip. I butchered that line, but you guys get the idea.
Yeah.
But
maybe it was 2 weeks, 14 papers. And this 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks, 14 papers.
About what we know about medical science and things. I'm going to go ahead and say no. And this is going to be weird. I'm going to say Randy. I can't fucking stand him. But that being said, it's because I don't think we're supposed to be able to stand him, because this is Ralphie. Then we're supposed to see him as an annoying little brother. But seeing as that he's supposed to be 5 or 6, and the mom still has to talk to him that way and get him to eat food by pretending to be a piggy and baby talking him. Could we now say Randy's on the spectrum? Would you say, like, if someone's like, oh, the character Randy is definitely somewhere in the developmentally disabled list, even different? Because like there's something going on there. As I'm like unpacking it here as I'm listening to you guys talk, I mean, he can't get up, he can't do anything himself. He barely forms cohesive sentences. He thinks that every single thing under the tree is his. There's something going on with Randy. Maybe it's the lead-based paint. Maybe it's maybe it's the fact that, and this is another point that I have here. This is a segue. Did it bother anybody else in this movie? The fucking cavalier nature, the father catching fire to all the electrical outlets in the goddamn movie.
Yes.
Like, really bothered me. Like, a whole lot of time.
I mean, it wouldn't say it bothered me, but it was entertaining.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, man, that's a real good way. Like that, you see all those old school, because we all have like a piece of antique thing that our parents had in there, and it's got that old plug on there, right? The unpolarized plug. You're like, oh, I feel like just holding this thing. It's not plugged in. I'm in a burst in the flames. Much like 12 of those things, plug it in there and sparking.
Well, going back to Randy, Noah, as a father, right? Is your child a picky eater?
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
Much less now than when she was a year ago, but yeah.
do you let her eat her meatloaf and mashed potatoes and cabbage like she's eating it off her plate like a trough?
Never in a million years.
I thought that was so strange. Mom was so into it, and I'm like, I'm looking at Steph. I'm like, is Randy on the spectrum a little bit, and we just didn't know at this point? You know, what's Randy seemed like he had a little something going on,
a little something extra there.
Wasn't probably diagnosed in the 1940s. Just in terms of
shit, Mac, they didn't diagnose people in 2006. You know what I mean? Like fucking help me out here, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit weird. Like, if I ever did that at the dinner table, that would have been a time that my dad took the belt off and said, over here. You know, you mentioned that, Jones, earlier about your experiences. You know, my mother was always the disciplinarian in the house. Mm-hmm. Dad was always a threatening figurehead, because my mom would be like, if this is what I'm doing this so your father doesn't have to. Well, I just remember like the one time that like Jimmy Mack took the belt off, and I remember running for my life. He didn't even do anything. My dad never laid a finger on me in his life, but he took the belt off one time, and he never had intention of doing anything with it. And I just remember being so traumatized. Like, just don't, please, just don't do it, you know. Yeah, it's. I don't even really remember where I was going with that, but just kind of commenting.
Yeah. So knowing we know now, do I feel slightly bad about wanting to say? I have it in my notes about Randy. Hold on, let me read how awful this is, because I deserve it. I deserve to be called out like this. I said, I'm talking about. I called Ralphie a twat as the first chance we meet Ralphie, and then I said I also want to stab his brother a lot. And then I make several other references. Randy needs his ass kicked and stabbed. I'll do it. Randy makes it out to the entirety of this movie without a knife wound. I'm very sad. I got a little angry about Randy.
I think the only critical note I had about Randy was when he was knocked to the ground, when he was in the oversized snowsuit, like the star suit where he couldn't get his arms down. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why can't he get up? And Steph just goes, he's got so much clothes, he's way down. It's like, he could easily roll. Just get back up again. Why is he getting back up? Of
course, then again, too, I believe, am I the only one here that has a little brother? Right?
Yes.
Right. And we all know my little brother because he's your little brother too. Right?
Right.
Dude, I fucking got sense memories of fucking Drew this entire time about this little shit that I couldn't get. And Drew listens to the show, and he just tried to fight with me today. So let me just kind of get in here.
Get in here.
Hey. That. God damn it, Drew. Watch A Christmas Story. Watch that little fat little fuck waddling around on his back, whining, begging for someone to help him when he could have helped himself. Help me! Oh my God! We need me! I just want you to know that I had to fucking deal with that. And some days, emotionally, I still gotta fucking deal with that because of you. So you get on your high horse and you ride the fuck out of town, okay? But anyway, I wanted to stab his little brother, and it has nothing to do with my own emotional shit. I'm just recently realized I'm unpacking on the live on the air. Right?
Well, so of course, like, I was the little brother. So yes. I'm the one who needed to get stabbed. Growing up.
Well, shit.
Stabbings for everybody.
You know, for the stuff that I put my brother through. So
speaking of stabbings, let's go to what I feel is the most iconic scene in the movie. It could not be. It could be something else. But it's the Santa scene, to me. Right? That's the movie that if you say pick a scene that you remember the most from this movie, before I watched it again, I would absolutely every time tell you the Ralphie getting kicked down the slide and that whole sequence is, to me, the most iconic scene in the movie. What do you say? What's the most iconic scene for you guys?
Well, as you talk about the Santa scene, Noah, I've got complete fucking flashbacks. to that. I was saying to Steph in the movie, as you know, the elves are pushing the kids through, and Santa's like, "I'm not going to stay here 1 minute past 9."
Yep, we know what that's like.
And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I never had anything really bad happen when I was playing Santa Claus, but I did have one terrible set of parents come up to me and say, "Listen, my kid's going to be coming up to you in a minute, and I want you to tell my kids they were bad and they're not getting anything for Christmas." Oh. And I'm looking at this dude. I'm looking at this dude like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Like, that would destroy your kid. I'm not saying that to them."
No, I can't do that, sir. Sorry about that.
No, and I'm thinking to myself, just seeing that guy up there sitting in the suit and everything, and I was like, man, how many kids did I just want to kick down the slide?
Oh, and
just kind of get past it.
That actor who played that Santa would have loved the opportunity for a dad to come up and say, "Hey, you know what? I don't want to be this guy, and I'm sorry this is out of your job, but you can call my son a dirty twat if you want to, and tell him he's not getting shit." And the Santa's like, "There, fantastic. Can I tell the next 2 kids after him?" Just because he would have. Oh God, that was awful. That was awful. It was probably fitting. It did encapsulate the terror that I imagine some kids feel when they're meeting a Santa or an Easter Bunny for the first time. But to me, that's just like the scene makes me hate Santa. It makes me hate elves. It makes me hate teenagers, and it makes me hate slides. 3 of the 4, I'm already on the fence about all the time anyway.
So the scene did its job.
It did. Doc, how do you feel about the scene, man?
I mean, it's obnoxious.
It is. But by design,
because it's supposed to be, right? Like it's shot in a way that it's compact, it's claustrophobic. You know, going up the steps to get to like Santa Claus, the whole thing feels so uncomfortable. And it's supposed to, I'm assuming. I don't really have strong feelings about that scene. To me, it's one of the weaker parts of the movie. It's just there. I mean, because that scene needed to happen. That's a big part of the story, but it doesn't really do much for me.
I felt the whole scene existed just so the parents could go buy their kids their fucking Christmas presents.
Yes. Effectively,
yeah,
it did. Logistically, that's why it was, and the whole thing was worse so that they get over the angst that minimum wage retail workers feel during Christmas, but also the idea that we needed just one more person of import to tell him that he's going to shoot his eye out, and so who more heavy weight hitting in that regard than Santa Claus, and to do it so nonchalantly as well, I think was supposed to be a shock moment, and it worked. But
I will go with that.
Yeah, it was. I liked how that scene was shot because, you know, I mean, I can remember, you know, those feelings, you know, because there's always 2 stages to you with Santa Claus as a kid. There's the point where you're fucking completely terrified of him, and then there's the point where you have reverence. And I like that Ralphie was at the age here where it was kind of in between, because he had the whole plan there to tell Santa Claus what he needed to say, and then couldn't fucking do it. And then Santa's like, "What about a football?" And you're like, "Yeah, like you're fucking hypnotized." "Yeah, a football." And then Ralphie clinging to the slide before going down just to get his final say into the big guy. That last appeal to the higher power, right?
The only guy that matters at this point.
And then, and then I know as they're sitting at the bottom of the slide, him and Randy, like, they were laying there for at least a few minutes. How many fucking kids came down that slide afterwards and like landed on their heads as they were just sitting there because they waited until like their mom and dad came to pull them up? I thought it was an interesting scene, but I didn't really have a lot of affinity for it except for my own experiences doing that job.
Yeah.
I still think the most, to me, the scene that sticks with me the most is the last scene of the movie. And I don't know if we're ready to transition to that yet or not, but
that works for me.
I'll hold that point. It's the turkey getting destroyed and then them having to go to the Chinese restaurant for dinner.
Right. Yeah.
That scene to me, because again, you've got all these really, you know, like just universal Christmas moments of the movie. Again, things we've talked about, the tongue getting stuck to the pole.
Yeah.
You know, the bunny suit that sticks with us, everything to do with the leg lamp. But that whole thing of them being at the Chinese restaurant, like, just get dressed. We're going out. You know?
Yeah.
And look, I will be very clear here, and this has nothing to do with Christmas Story, but one of my family traditions for the holidays, everybody, is that we get Chinese food for dinner as a family on Christmas Eve. Because in middle school, one year, because we live in Pittsburgh, everybody, and this isn't really a sports-themed podcast, but I'm a little bit of a sports guy, they would say. My family didn't want anything to do with cooking dinner on Christmas Eve when the Steelers were playing the fucking Chargers out in San Diego back when I was in 7th grade. So the idea was, well, let's just go to Sesame Inn. There's your plug, Sesame Inn. I'm not going to expect some kickbacks, but we're going to build on this, and we're going to see where this goes.
I could be persuaded to show myself out for some delicious spring rolls, but keep going.
Absolutely. But we got Chinese food, and we got that for dinner because nobody wanted to cook, and that became a family tradition. We're like, oh, we really like this. Let's just do this every year. And people would ask me when I would talk about, like, what are your family traditions? Like, oh, we get Chinese food for Christmas Eve every year. It's like, oh, like in A Christmas Story. I'm like, what? Because I didn't know. I never watched it. And then when I finally saw it and everything, and I'm like, well, first off, this is fucking racist as shit.
Oh, dude, it's so racist. It's so racist, and it really fucking, like, I thought we were going to get away from one movie. Get one movie in that isn't just randomly and excessively racist for no reason. And every movie we've done, there's a moment of racism, which makes me realize maybe there's just more racism in movies than I thought there was.
Yeah, there is.
All the way through this movie. It's not just a little racist. It's not even moderately racist. It is fucking heavy-handed racism at the very end. The feel-good moment of this movie. This is a note I have, and I have to say that this movie is voted America's #1 favorite Christmas movie. The object of the main character's affection is a gun. And the feel-good resolution of the whole thing, where everyone finally comes together in the spirit of Christmas, is knee-deep in a bath of racism. This is the iconic American Christmas movie, dude.
It checks boxes, doesn't it?
How much more can it be? Like, I was sitting there with, literally, and this takes a lot for me to do, I sat there with my hand over my mouth watching this last scene, like, oh no. Like, it just unnecessarily.
It didn't age very well.
Not at all.
In that case,
not something from 1983.
No.
And I was talking with somebody about this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, I mean, how racist is it?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I feel it's kind of bad, but I mean, it's obviously not bad enough that TNT and TBS haven't edited out of the version, nor is there a disclaimer at the beginning of it that says, well, this movie was made back in 1983, representing the 1940s. So just keep in mind some cultural touch points with this and just be aware. You know, they haven't put the disclaimer on it yet, but as I say this, they're probably thinking about it a little bit. Fun fact about that scene, the mother did not get the scene in the script.
Yep, not at all.
Nope. And they wanted to have her honest reaction when they brought the duck out. Bob Clark ensured not to tell her that the roasted duck was going to have the full head on it. So when you watch that scene, there was one take that they got of her honest reaction of that duck coming out fully fucking cooked, head and beak just hanging out. So
well, that's good.
I always thought that scene was so odd growing up, but like her reaction seems so strange relative to everybody else. And then, you know, like you said, you come to find out, like, she got a totally different false part of the script. That's why, if you notice, the kids are like staring at her because they're in on it. Everybody's in on it.
Yeah.
And her just trying to contain herself because none of this is what she was prepared to see or do. And then when he chops the duck's head off, her reaction's like Pure
Super genuine.
priceless, honestly.
He chops the head off and then sticks it in his pocket, like sticks it in the pocket of the apron, and the head's just hanging out.
Like, well, there you go.
That to me was just so. That to me is like the scene of the movie that just kind of stuck with me, and probably not for like a good reason, but again, seeing this movie when I did at the time that I did, I'm like, well, that's kind of inappropriate. So I imagine at some point it was supposed to be funny, but I don't think it didn't exactly age very well. So
before we give our final thoughts on this thing, considering we reached the last iconic scene, I do want to ask a question, and I apologize that I didn't ask. Okay, inside baseball. Sometimes if I'm going to ask opinionated questions, I send out a text or a message to everyone so they can. It's like a vice presidential interview. You get the questions ahead of time so you can have a prepared answer. But I'm going to spring this one on you. And Jones, you've alluded to this several times in a podcast, but Ralphie's object of his Christmas desire was the Red Ryder BB gun.
Mm-hmm.
So what is I'm going to ask you, it's a two-parter, tell me both or one if you want. But what is the Christmas toy that you always wanted, but you never got? And did you ever really want something one year and can remember actually getting it on Christmas Day?
On Christmas Day?
Or for a holiday?
Yeah, for the Christmas. A Power Wheels. 100%. I never got that shit. I was never going to get that. But I always wanted it.
It's number one anything out.
That was like so far away, so close. And the gift, pretty sure the Nintendo 64.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Mac, what was the one that got away?
Oh, this is notorious in my family. So if any of my family members are listening to this podcast, first off, what the fuck's wrong with you? I mean, where did you just stumble upon this? Did somebody do you even know this is me talking right now? I mean, are you aware of how this is actually going? Because you guys we gotta have some talks after this, man. But it's notorious with my family. I wanted, growing up, a play school kitchen in the worst way. I don't know. There was just always something, like if I went to a friend's house and they had it, I always loved the play school kitchen. Now, as I've become an adult, and I started doing this when I first started living on my own, I realized I like good food. And if you and you can't afford to buy good food, you have to learn how to make it. And Jones, you and I, man, we've had our fucking adventures in the kitchen over the years. We'll talk about that at some other time here, ladies and gentlemen, about some not so famous things that were cooked up at the estate.
Right.
But as I said, and it was my dad who wasn't really a fan of me getting it. But I always wanted the play school kitchen, and I never got it. That was the one that got away. And I remember one year, because I asked Santa Claus for it like 3 times. Yeah. And I remember one year I was like crying to my parents, like, what did I do wrong each year? All I asked Santa Claus for was the play school kitchen, and I never got it. So
yeah, that's heartbreaking.
That's a deep cut to mom and dad. Yeah.
But I've had that conversation with my parents all the time. We gotten older, because I would say to them, I was like, you realize if you guys bought me the play school kitchen, we wouldn't be having Christmas dinner at my house. We'd be eating Christmas dinner at my 5-star fucking restaurant.
Your Michelin star restaurant.
Because I would have become a chef most likely in my life, because I still to this day love to cook. That was the one that got away. There were 2 gifts that I got that were huge for me as a kid, because they were also big gifts. Like when you got the big, like when you went downstairs and looked at the Christmas tree and the big gift had your name on it. Oh my God! Right?
Yeah, you were the one. Yeah,
didn't have to be the most expensive gift; just had to be the big gift, right? Especially as a kid. So one year, I got the Ninja Turtle lair for Christmas.
Oh shit!
And I honestly think that maybe with the exception, and I don't remember if I got the Ghostbusters Firehouse as a Christmas present or a birthday present or something, but I definitively remember the sewer lair was a Christmas present. And that was the first base that like my family got me as a gift. You know, we didn't have like, there wasn't a Death Star, you know, there wasn't a lair, you know, the turtle lair was the first one.
That was the one.
So, and that just changed the game for me with the Ninja Turtles, because now
That's awesome.
everything was on, right?
Everything can happen at the lair. Yeah.
Well, because I also think too at that time I used the Ghostbusters firehouse as like a location for the Ninja Turtles to kind of hang out above ground. Yeah. And now I could like, you know, finally go ahead and have them in the rightful place. That was a huge Christmas gift for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I will answer the question in the two-parter. I won't name the ones. I was lucky enough that I don't really want things very often. So I was always just kind of like asking Santa for wrestling dolls. Literally was basically what I asked for every year for Christmas, and I got them all, right? But the two toys that I always wanted that I never got as a kid were, one, moon shoes, which thank God, knowing what my mom felt about loud noises, there was no way in hell I was ever going to get moon shoes. Plap, 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 plap. Jackie would have fucking had an aneurysm with that kind of fucking noise. Like she would have, oh man, she would have drop kicked me more than she did if I would have had moon shoes. But it's a sweet story. The other one that I always wanted as a kid was the game Crossfire. Do you remember? Crossfire.
Oh, I remember that commercial.
Yeah, the commercial with the shooting the marbles at each other. And I asked for like 3 or 4 years in a row, I asked for Crossfire. Not wrestlers. And that's for wrestling dolls. I asked for Crossfire. And I never got it. Never got it. And when I started dating my wife, I told her that it's like that. She always wanted a Barbie dream house and never got it. And I always wanted Crossfire and never got it. Fast forward to a few years ago, years into our relationship, she pulls the fucking Christmas Story gimmick out on me after we're all done and we're having our post-Christmas coffee. It's our first Christmas in the house we live in now. And she pulls out the gift from behind the tree. And I open it up, and it's fucking Crossfire, a brand new Crossfire in the box. And I fucking cried because she remembered after all those years and got me Crossfire. And I felt so strongly about it that I haven't. It's still under my bed. I've never opened it because I don't want anything to happen to it.
And there it shall stay
in there until Lily is old enough to understand the need. I'm gonna drip feed it the way I was. I'm just gonna play that commercial like 300 times until she's fucking ready for Crossfire, and then we'll assemble it. But it's that she got me Crossfire. So
that takes me back.
That's the iconic commercial to me of childhood. One of them, Micro Machine Guy talking real fast. The WWF figure commercial where Piper was playing with the kids with the blue ring and the little Hasbro guys, and Crossfire. All-time 3 greatest toy commercials. But all right, so what I'm going to do right now, so we can wrap up Christmas Story and be fair, is I'm gonna give my final thoughts, and we'll give our final thoughts. I'll lead off.
No, can I interrupt you real quick?
Please.
I'd like to take this opportunity to our loyal listeners to encourage you to go out to our Twitter, go out to our social media accounts, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your favorite Christmas gifts as a kid? Tell us some of the things that you really enjoyed, or what are some of those, just those golden eggs that you really wanted growing up that you didn't quite get. And why don't you go ahead and share some of your iconic Christmas memories. Perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, we may read them on a future episode of Nothing Good.
Yes.
Yep.
And share some of that as we go through the holiday season, everybody.
We can gather them all up and distribute them like gifts. I think that's a great idea, Mac. Fantastic. Yes, please share it with us. We'll post it on the social media and all kinds of other fun stuff coming this week, as well as I made short clips of the video that we're shooting right now to kind of promote some of the future, some of the past episodes we've done this way, just so they can see our beautiful faces. And some of the jokes that I think could have used the visual context. So 2 or 3 minute clips on coming on our social media soon. So do that and reply with your favorite Christmas moments. But I'm going to give a good and a bad final impression here of Christmas Story. Though I admittedly do not like the vibe of the movie. almost all of the characters in the movie, and zero of the motivation and circumstances the characters do find themselves in. There's one thing about the movie that it nails. And I think this, to me, might have a bit of a subconscious reason why America absolutely relates to this damn movie. When they finally get their tree up, and it seems like at that moment, that entire time, every time you see the tree, the screen is a little bit more gleamy, and the tinsel is always kind of shimmering, and the lights are huge bulbs. I think that kind of reminds everybody of their grandparents' Christmas tree, or some sort of moment when you're little and the tree seems so big and so shiny, right? I think that instance, though I don't really like the vibe of the movie, they nailed that so hard. And for that reason alone, I can say the sentence that though I may not like the movie, I can completely understand why so many people equate this film with the Christmas vibe. That makes any sense. That being said, I also just want to say that I know he's a grown man now, but if I ever see Ralphie on the street, I feel like I'm going to run up to him and I'm going to say, fuck you. Moving along.
Before you do that, Noah, can we just go ahead and remind you that Peter Billingsley, who is Ralphie, was an executive producer on Iron Man. Has had a role in Spider-Man: Far From Home. And the original Iron Man as well. That's right. So as a part of all that, he I think he has a little bit of part in too, because I guess he's friends with Jon Favreau. He's done some things that have really impacted our recent lives. So
I give no fucks. You sit there. Stop. Fuck you. Not you. But you, Ralphie. Billingston Witherby. Whatever the fuck your name is.
Witherby.
You sound like the fucking Wild Thornberry's main character. Okay? Fuck you.
But if you do see that and you do say fuck you and happen to push him down in a pile of snow, Peter, I will be there to help you up and apologize just for what had happened there. So.
After yelling fuck you because I remember A Christmas Story, I will proceed to tongue some part of his body and then whisper deep into his ear, I'm not Tony Stark. Which is his only real major line in the first Iron Man movie. And then, of course, again, another ceremonious fuck you into the very orifice I just tongued. Just to keep him guessing, I broke Doc a little bit. So apparently on the list of things I can't say on the microphone, succulent is one of them. And tonguing an orifice is another one.
Your voice is like in my ears, so it's really weird, man.
You see, I make sure to have the over-the-ear headphones so that I don't feel the penetration of Noah's, tongue lashing where that happens.
Baritone, tonguing.
Just the
Matt,
tonguing the orifice.
Give me some final impressions of this iconic Christmas.
I still just don't give enough of a shit about it, even after talking about it all this time. Again, I respect its place in the holiday film lexicon. I can obviously see its influence in other areas of cinema. And again, my just affection for our director Bob Clark because of Porky's. I'm still that I will probably change the channel if I see this is on. This isn't really a rewatch for me all the time. Again, I can appreciate some of the themes of the movie and the quintessential nostalgia that you feel about it. Like I can appreciate that, but beyond that, I think there's probably 50 other Christmas movies and probably another 25 movies that people would debate are not Christmas movies that take place at Christmas, that have themes but maybe don't quite feel like Christmas, but should be Christmas, but maybe not quite Christmas, but they're toast in Christmas, so it's just the tip of Christmas. I would rather just to see how Christmas feels, just get a little bit of that Christmas cheer, right? That's for you, Dave. I know you're listening. I'm just gonna turn the channel on this one and find something I enjoy more. So, but thank you, Christmas Story, for existing. But maybe not as angry as Noah would say. I'll say maybe more a little gentle. Go fuck yourself.
Tasteful.
Thank you.
Tasteful.
Yeah,
Doc.
Try to be.
Doc, as the baby face in this episode. Now I'm going to ask you what your final thoughts are. Feel free to proverbially tongue as many orifices or orify. I don't know what the plural of that is. I've never really looked into it. You better believe I'm going to. But tongue all of them as much as you want. Take us out. What's your final thoughts on this?
So it's rare that, off the top of my head at least, and I really haven't done a lot of research in that regard, but as you guys may or may not know, I'm not a big Christmas person, not a big holiday person. So I don't do a lot of holiday films. I think by and large, they're usually not that good. But there are a few that are good, that are decent. I don't believe that A Christmas Story is the greatest Christmas movie of all time, but it is by and large my favorite. For a movie that pretty much everything that happens in it is grounded in reality outside of, imagination and things that actually can't happen in reality. For it being so grounded, everything that happens in the film can happen in real life. The most unrealistic thing is the Bumpus' dog, the hounds eating Christmas dinner, which is still realistic. That could happen. For a movie like that to exist, for it to exist in such a way that millions of people watch it every year, over 40 million people watch it every year on TBS for reasons beyond my comprehension, but more power to them. For me, the movie represents not just a movie you watch during Christmas. It represents childhood. It represents the need and the want, the unwavering hyper-focus, the tunnel vision. I do agree with most of the criticisms that were thrown at it. None of them really matter because the movie's still really good, obviously. But I respect, obviously. I don't really have final thoughts on it. I mean, my final thoughts I've been saying the entire time. Right? The characters are interesting. They have some motivations, be it not necessarily altruistic, but they're there. It's fun. It's not to be taken seriously. It's not high art. It's just dude's story. And learning now more about it, I appreciate it even more. It makes things make more sense. So it will be in the list of holiday films I will ever watch. It's always going to be number one. And I'm glad that my parents sat me down and made me watch it when I was a kid. Because it's a fucking gem, as far as I'm concerned. But those are my closing thoughts. I don't really have any, honestly.
Well, thank you for sharing what you did have.
Yeah.
If Christmas Story was a person, and you could tongue one part of its body, where would you tongue it?
Don't have a response for that.
Would you be classy and just say the mouth?
I mean, I guess.
I kind of really want you and need you to just say that, yes, I would tongue Christmas Story in the mouth. I'm like, you wouldn't fuck Goro's back tits. You wouldn't come inside the Sega channel. Just tell me you French kiss A Christmas Story.
I will not.
God damn you.
Just the fucking laundry
tell you on that, man.
things. Just the laundry list of things that Herb won't fuck. Or
That I
Todd.
have standards.
One of these days, we're going to come across something. And you're just, we're not going to be thinking about it. And you're like, you know what? You know what? I'd raw dog this movie. I would do it. I would let this movie go down on me, and then because I like it so much, it'd be reciprocation time.
Just Leonardo standing in the corner, with a cigarette.
Oh man,
Crying,
just crying.
Well, on that note, I think we're done with part one of the holiday series, the first holiday series in the lexicon of nothing good. Next week we have a completely different vibe. We have a favorite of mine, but most importantly, it's yet another version of Charles Dickens' classic, A Christmas Carol. Every so often we get a new update. Is it the best version of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol? I would say no, but it's my favorite. So we're going to talk about it. What is the best one? I'll tell you next week. I will probably go off on a tangent about the best version of Charles. Spoiler, it's the fucking Muppet Christmas Carol is the peak version.
It takes very long.
It is fucking the pinnacle of A Christmas Carol. But we'll get there one day. And then after that, we're going to settle the debate once and for all. So that anytime anyone else around you runs their mouth and they ask, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? You'll be able to share the link to that episode because we're going to ask, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I mean, is it?
We're gonna ask that question and we're going to answer. God damn it. We should all watch the movie, but will we talk about the points of the movie? Who fucking knows? Because that's not what the episode is about. It's not, we're going to cover Die Hard. We're going to argue. Who knows what other deep-seated anger we're going to bring up in this? I mean, we were talking about one-hit wonders, and our friendship almost ended over Bad Boys 2. I don't know what watching Hans Gruber fall off Nakatomi Tower is going to do to us, but God damn it, I'm here for it.
Did you guys know that if you start Die Hard right after watching Love Actually, that Alan Rickman gets his just deserves for what he does to his wife in that fucking movie?
Oh, man. That's I can't feel like he deserves. I love Alan Rickman, but he did Emma Thompson dirty in that movie.
Did Emma Thompson so dirty in that fucking movie?
Dirty. But let's not ask ourselves. Regardless, I'm not asking anyone here if they'd ever cheat on their wife, but in a non-marriage or relationship scenario, if that secretary from Love Actually came on to you, even a tenth as strong as she comes on to Alan Rickman in that fucking movie, like she full on Sharon Stone's him, turns around and just spreads her legs in the middle of an office, in the middle of a romantic comedy. It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can resist it. Thankfully, I'm never going to be in England in the year 2003. So, but we'll talk. I'm sure we'll mention Love Actually during the Die Hard episode. But actually, I loved talking about this movie with you guys. So, will I see you for Scrooged?
I mean, I'm kind of contracted to be here, so I will be here.
Doc is contractually obligated to be here. He's on all the bills we pay for this, so
yeah.
So there it is. I mean, if he doesn't, he has to pay child support, which I don't think anyone of us wants. Because then I'm going to tell the podcast that your dad doesn't want to see you, and it's a whole. No one wants a podcast from a broken home. I mean,
no.
Listen, I'm willing to do an entire month just on Bill Murray of this podcast. So if you think I'm missing Scrooged, you've got the Ghosts of Christmas Past, Present, and Future coming your way because I'm going to fucking be there.
Oh, beautiful.
With nice Jingle Bells on.
Jingle Bells. Fantastic. Well, let's wrap it up. Gents, make sure, hey, you can find us on Twitter, at Nothing Good Pod. We're on Facebook. That's right. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. You can check us out on Amazon. We're on Pandora now officially, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, of course, Spotify, and especially available. And if you're anywhere near in the area, just let Peru know what we're doing. Let Peru know that there's really no legal way that they can restrain us from checking in on there. I refuse to stay within 500 yards away from Peru at any time.
Listen, when we do nothing good without borders, we are going to Peru. And we're going to feel that vibe as we do some episode on something that's probably not even closely related to Peru, but to Purdue either. Fuck Purdue.
Fuck Purdue.
But yeah, just
fuck,
everybody.
Fuck Purdue is a university. Fuck Purdue is a chicken. Right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But yeah, just guys, I mean, look, I don't want to sound too needy or anything, but just let them know that I'm thinking about them. And I miss them. I shouldn't say that because now Peru's going to think I'm so fucking needy.
But text Mac.
Just text, just let me know.
You don't have to send any nudes, any Peru nudes, Perudes.
No.
Oh my God, Perudes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Just please, I mean, even if you just say new phone, who dis, I won't be upset. I'm just going to be happy to know that I'm thinking about you.
Let me end this on this hypothetical question to you, Doc.
Yeah.
If we had listeners that were interested enough and they paid our way, would you go to Peru with Mac and I so we could go to a stadium or some sort of field, drill a hole in the earth, and all three of us could take that hole to Pound Town? Would you literally fuck a hole in Peru so you could say you fucked the nation of Peru? Would you do that?
No. Come on. It's like you don't know me.
I mean, now I just realized it's a whole mission of me to fuck every country.
Listen,
people from every country. The actual country.
I've heard that the soil in Peru is very moist.
It's about to be protein enriched.
I was going to say, I mean, if there's
pull it out of Peru,
I'm just saying, protein helps rainforests, right? I mean, it can't be that bad.
Are you going to breed Peru?
What?
Are you going to breed Peru? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
It'd be really funny if Peru ends up like showing up with like my hair color and my general round face.
You're at your retirement party. You're getting ready to go on that cruise you've always wanted to. Listen, I'll get you door. It's Peru, and it's got another country that looks a lot like you.
Another country.
I'll have a lot of explaining to do to Steph when she's like, I thought you went to Bolivia.
Oh, sometimes things got south. Things got weird, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of borders down there. Everything's kind of close together. Lines get erased. One thing leads to another, and next thing you know, you're back fucking Peru's tits like Goro in Mortal Kombat while watching Leonardo cuckold you in the corner, thinking about Herb Jones. If Peru called me Herb Jones in the heat of passion, I wouldn't even be upset.
No. I feel like that's like an immediate trigger. That's like milking the prostate. That one. It's just, what was that? Release.
You guys will know that I'm like internationally traveling. You'll hear on the news there's a 4.3 quake in Peru. You're like, Mac.
That son of a bitch.
Come flying back into the country. TSA or customs like, do you have anything to declare? It's like, I declare that I definitely didn't fuck the ground in Peru. Why would you ask me that question?
Excuse me.
Well,
listen, thanks everybody for joining us in this lovely episode. Starting our tour de force and
segue out of that.
Australia.
Yeah, I needed to I need to jump into this here.
Listen, Australia, you're not sloppy seconds. We're coming for you next. So a lot's going to go on your outback. Let's put it that way.
So in an attempt to prevent us from assaulting more countries or continents, everybody, gentlemen, thank you for this fantastic podcast. Great episode. Had a good time. I'm looking really forward to talking about Scrooged. That is a movie that I have not seen in a very, very long time, and I don't remember really anything about it anymore. So I'm excited to watch it again. Same bat time and channel. And thank you, everybody who listens to us. We appreciate you. Tell your friends if somebody's interested in something like this. Please, we're always looking for more people to insult and entertain. And just the holidays are coming up, so everybody be safe out in the world. Be good to each other and all that bullshit. And we will catch you on the next episode.
On the flip side, Mac, we'll see you next week.
Absolutely,
Yes.
gentlemen. Can't wait.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Noah, just turn off the Ring doorbell camera because I don't need Mariel to see what I'm going to, creep next.
That's just fine. I'll leave motion detection on just so I can watch it later when everyone's in bed.
Yeah, if I'm doing anything on your lawnmower, just know that I'm not wearing pants while I'm doing it.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
My man. All right. Nothing good.